Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to TCBL Days. I'm Jesse Marsh. I'll be moderating the discussion after our main speakers. And now I'd just like to give you a few words about where we are and what's ahead of us. We are on the second of the 4 Thursdays that are scheduled. This time we are going to be focusing on creative, and that's linked to the ongoing Creativewear Plus project. The morning we'll have our keynote speakers following the presentation of the Creativewear Project by Paolo Guarini and Paolo Guarnieri. We'll have Fridolin Wild, Maria Antonietta Sbordone, and Elvys Sandro and Andreea Spataru of Rado. In the afternoon, we'll be going to Lisbon to look at different traditional textile artisans and how they are working towards sustainability. That will be hosted by the Creative Hub Passa o Futuro at the 3rd floor co-working space in Lisbon. Ahead of us, next Thursday, we will be traveling to the Wallonia region in Belgium to look at the Wallonia Circular Fashion Program. And our final Thursday on the 2nd of December will be in Barcelona, and linked to the She Makes project, we'll be looking at the role of women in transforming the textile and clothing sector. Next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, we have our 2nd and 3rd TCBL Jam sessions, 2 sessions each of these days, starting at 4:30. These are going to be quick pitches by TCBL associates and labs, and then a brief discussion and a breakout space where you can talk individually to them. And then next Wednesday, the 2nd of the 2 info sessions, where I'll be explaining the TCL Association and how you can become a part of it. And again, I'd like to remind everyone that we are launching now. We will be defining the means of participation and announcing the winner at next year's TCBL Days, the Eric Barshashot Modernity Prize. And this is a very open award, open to just about anything that gives a new meaning to the word modern. Okay, this is how you can join us at TCBLs and follow this and all of the forthcoming events. And that's it from me. Over to our speakers then. So next up is Filippo Guarini of the Textile Museum of Prato, and Paolo Guarnieri of who is a consultant in the project manager in the Creativewear Project.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Filippo Guarini. I'm the director of the Textile Museum. Thank you very much, Jesse, for introducing us. We are very happy to present some of our projects together with Paolo, who is the project manager of the still ongoing project that we are presenting today. So first of all, thank you, Alexandra, for the next slide. First of all, I would like to shortly present the Textile Museum of Prato for those who don't know it yet. We are a cultural hub located in Prato in a very beautiful 19th and 20th century textile mine. I think that most of you know already know Prato, which is I think the most important textile district in Europe. We still have thousands of companies, small and medium-sized companies working in the textile and apparel sector, and tens of thousands of workers working for these companies. Of course, the museum has an historical collection, but we are also very much committed to represent let's say, the cultural interface of the district. But we will go back to this topic later on. Today we are presenting four projects, very quickly presenting 4 projects. The most important of them is Creativewear, and then the prosecution of Creativewear, which is Creativewear Plus, but more, and 2 other projects. We have 4 projects holding together the themes of creativity, culture, innovation, and sustainability. Next slide, please. So we don't have so much time to go deeper with the topics of what is creativity and so on. It would take a long time, but I would just to remember that there are very important international institutions that, let's say, certify the important link that binds creativity and sustainability. So first of all, I would like to remember the United Nations that in 2021 set up the International Year of Creative Economy for Sustainable Development. Then I would also remind that UNESCO in 2015 released the Culture 2030 indicators, which are considered, in which culture is considered a very important tool for achievement of sustainable development goals set by the 2030 agenda. And also, I would also remind that culture, creativity, and innovation are considered very important pillars of the new European Bauhaus for the implementation of the European Green Deal. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Before passing to briefly describe the project, I would like to, let's say, draft the principles that inspired the construction or the ideation of these projects. First of all, as I was saying before, the close link that binds the museum to the contemporary district. So we as the district, as all the textile district in the world, is pretty committed to the sustainability. We feel very strong this commitment as also for the museum, of course, from the cultural side. Then I would like to underline that all the projects that we are presenting are focused on the enhancement of textile and apparel historical archives, and we consider archives and heritage, textile and apparel heritage, as a strategic asset for creativity and for creative inspiration. So we consider archives as renewable resources for creativity. Then next is, no, please go to the previous one. Sorry, thank you. Okay. We tried also to foster with these projects the collaboration between art and industry, as we consider that it may increase the value of products and create new, let's say, new links between business and the artistic and cultural ecosystem. Then we focused a lot on digitization of archives, and we consider the links within digital technology and fashion industries as a very important asset to develop a more sustainable fashion industry. Next slide, please. So we quickly draft the Creativewear project that it was a Interreg funded project led by the municipality of Prato and run between 2016 and 2019. And it was a very important project, and it was focused on bringing new attention to creativity, to personalized design, and to artisan and small-scale productions. One of the most important outputs of the project was to establish a network of creative hubs that would experiment different ways of supporting cooperation between creative and enterprises. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Here we can see a map in which we see the first set of creative hubs, the one evidenced in yellow. So Prato, Palermo, Ljubljana, Athens, and Valencia, and then 7 more which has been added in the second phase of the project. So a very interesting project. Next slide, please. So within the Creativewear project, and within the Prato Heritage Hub, we decided to launch a cataloging campaign interesting on several important historical archives owned by some very important companies here in Prato. So we launched this digitization process of textile archives. And then next slide, please. We asked the companies to start working with young designers selected in Europe in order to work on digitized archives as important source of inspiration for the realization of new, let's say, capsule collection or prototypes that have also been presented in very important textile fairs such as Premier Vision. So it was a very, very important and positive result, this last one. Next slide. Another project which originated from the Creativewear project was the Creatives project that was financed by the Creative Europe program, in which we transferred the model of the Creativewear Heritage Hub to other territories, such as Poland, Sweden, Catalonia, and of course Italy and Portugal, and in which we asked some very young fashion design students to realize prototypes and collection inspired by digitized collections. So it was a very successful project. And then we can pass quickly to the third project I'm going to present. This is a still ongoing project. It's the only one which has been funded by our own resources and not by Europe. We are always talking about archives. This is the Textile Library, so a contemporary archive of fabrics, which is dedicated not to historical fabrics, but to contemporary textile materials, which are provided by a lot of contemporary companies, and which is focused on circular fashion and sustainability. So I don't want to take too much time. I would like now to pass the floor to Paolo, who is presenting the only still ongoing project beside the Textile Library, so the Creativewear Plus project, so the development of the Creativewear project. Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you, Filippo, for this very comprehensive introduction to the new project Creativewear Plus. I am Paolo Guarnieri, based in Prato at the Textile Museum of Prato, working with Filippo and other creative people on the new project Creativewear Plus. The task of Creativewear Plus is basically reaping the fruits of the former Creativewear project that was going on between 2016 and 2019. And now has just started at the mid of this year and will go on until the mid of next year, 2022. It's a 13 months capitalization, so-called capitalization project funded by the Interreg Mediterranean program, which is funding a number of economic, social, creative, environmental projects around the Mediterranean. Next slide, please. And next one. So basically, the Creativewear Plus project brings on the results of the former project, which were to open up the industry, the textile and clothing industry, to creative and artistic influence coming from the environmental milieu where the textile and clothing firms are working. So different kind of creatives, different kinds of artisans, different kinds of artists have interacted with several firms in what we call Creativewear pilots. So in the next slide, we can see that the activities of the project revolve around Creativewear hubs, which are aggregators to deliver a number of activities such as training, workshops, exhibitions, prototype development, new collection development, matchmaking, collaborations, even prizes for creative entrepreneurs, which are aimed at renewing the industrial production in textile and clothing with more creative, identitarian, territorial values, and even social innovation. In the next slide, we see that in this new project, 3 former Creativewear hubs from Prato, Palermo, and Athens interact 2 by 2 with 3 new hubs in France, Montelimar, in Zepce, that is in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and in Évora, that is in Portugal. As a working tool, in the next slide, we see that we have used something that looks similar, but is very conceptually and practically different from a business model canvas, because it's basically a tool to represent a community in each of the hubs regions and to represent what are the different know-hows and tacit knowledge that is available in this community And we use this canvas to exchange information and to facilitate contact between each pair of Creativewear Plus hubs. So in the next slide, we see that the activities of this new very short project, I have to say, because we are already halfway and we will end up in 6 months from now around. So it's a pairing each couple of hubs to develop new pilots based on the vocational potentials of each hub in the different regions, and clustering these hubs and their communities together with between the giver and receiver hubs. And according to their own vocation, the receiver hubs, that is the learning hubs that have joined this Creativewear Plus project since last June, according to their vocation, they will develop new projects, that is new collections, new creations, new productions that will finally be exhibited in Prato. In the next slide, we see that the final outcomes of the project will basically be new 3 new projects from each hub pair, and also these projects will produce concrete products that will be exhibited at the Textile Museum of Prato in June 2022. And meanwhile, just as we have learned a lot through the former Creativewear project, the model that was derived from that project will be updated with the new knowledge, with the new experience that we are gaining through this Creativewear Plus project currently. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paolo and Filippo. That was really interesting, and that really sets the tone, I think, for the morning about the Creativewear project and the creative dimension. And now we're going to look at it from different aspects from our invited speakers. And first up is Fridolin, the professor at the Oxford Brookes University and recently also at the Open University. Fridolin was part of TCBL, where we began to look at how augmented reality could connect with the textile and clothing industry. So Fridolin, let's hear about what you've been up to in the last couple of years.
Thank you, Jesse. Yes, it's an exciting time. Things are coming through that we have been working on for a long time. I do care for rapid reskilling, and that's what I stand for in my research program at the Open University in the Performance Augmentation Lab of the Institute of Educational Technology. I am looking at bridging the gap between theory and practice, this dissociative gap that sometimes makes it difficult to transfer knowledge into practice, to engage in a knowledge exchange from practice back into theory and the likes. And I think in that context in particular, augmented reality, extended reality will have a cardinal role to play. If we look at rapid reskilling, I have a vision. I think we need to prepare for a future where the speed of how quickly you can learn something defines your business success. And we can achieve this with extended reality, the conglomerate of new technologies from the VR end of the spectrum, the modern VR, which is still responsive and sensitive of the environment, prevents you from running into walls and desks, to the spectrum of AR, where we care for things happening in the real world. We can use these to help people go from unskilled to mastery in no time, on the job, and productive from the moment we engage. So that involves a significant paradigm shift away from what we see today, like depicted here, where people come to a company visit to learn about new technologies, to engage with industrial practice, and attendance is the main privilege, but it's not in with the possibilities to dial it remotely. It doesn't have facilities for hybrid. It requires experts to travel, which is a risk, especially in these times, which is expensive, as always has been. And where the real experience of kind of apprenticeship situation is limited to 2 shoulders. We also, therefore, have relatively little support for real-time. There's no responsiveness. There's no real-world analytics available that can provide direct feedback immediately. And there are no predictive capabilities that can foresee problems emerging or successes emerging and then reschedule according business processes. Moreover, if you don't have that base technology for the real world interaction, there is of course no personalization, which means everything we do in training and reskilling is optimized for the scenario of maximum exploitation with the broadest reach possible. And that means we're losing out on the long tail of content. That has to change. We have to move forward to an era in which the experience counts, in which we are not about the privilege of attendance, but the privilege of getting a memorable experience, something that you can recall easily in situations where you need to apply that knowledge, something where knowledge and practice become interwoven in unprecedented ways using technology. And that's the difference. I think that's the difference to anything that we heard in earlier fashionable learning technology waves. We can do this with wearable technology in a very embedded way. So here, this fantastic picture redrawn from Ori Inbar and the Augmented World Expo depicts this situation a little bit. We have new smart glasses technology. We have a lot of gadgets that are widely used. Probably some of you are even wearing an armband to track your fitness. What's coming on the horizon is smart gloves that provide haptic feedback and can teach us how to do things with precision, and other types of wearables, e-textiles, where even the whole computing architecture from the PCB board to sensors can fully be integrated in garments, can fully be made out of garments even. And I point maybe to one of the lectures that I have on YouTube on how to engage in production quality also with e-textiles. Exciting future, a lot is coming. Wearable technology can make this dream of productivity from the moment you engage in training happen. They can help make this a reality. The second important bit, and that's the biggest blocker we currently face in the industry of extended realities, content prevails. Content is king. Content is queen. We need a lot more content than is out there to make this dream a success. And that's what we have spent a significant amount of time in the last few years on trying to master. Maybe a brief word on how these technologies relate to each other. Augmented reality, virtual reality. It's quite nicely depicted here. Virtual reality is the kind of matrix sort of scenario if it's made badly, where people are couch potatoes and are immersed, put away into a prison-like virtual reality. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have this mad vision of creating superhumans who are superior and have other capabilities using wearable computing. And I think the reality is somewhere in between, that a good virtual reality application would also react to the environment. It would just give you a different view on the environment. It would allow you to live your office day in a Victorian simulation, but it would still prevent you from running into this desk, into that wall, and be reactive and responsive. And the same way, augmented reality is no longer Pokemon Go trying to chase down some GPS coordinates. And I'm not saying that's not great. My kids enjoyed it a lot. But it's much more about interacting with the real world. It's a lot about reality as a platform, as I call it. We are moving away from the age where the application decides what the use case is, where you have to create a single app for a single purpose, and we're entering the age where the technology stack is there so that we can seamlessly deliver content directly into the real world without really bothering about delivery mechanisms, devices we have to use, or app stores and the likes. Reality as a platform has many names. One quite recently resurfacing is the metaverse or the multiverse. But there are cyber physical systems, there are mixed reality, extended reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, immersive technologies, and. This has, of course, big IT also realize that this is the next generation of personal computing. This will change the way we interact with computers fundamentally, and I hope they get it right. I think it will be a tough game and a tough competition, especially between the big IT houses and the small innovative companies and research institutes. When we looked at content production, we were a bit shocked, actually, to see how poorly technology is. Augmented reality, extended reality, mixed reality, they have a long history. So the serious research history goes back to the 50s, where the first headsets were designed for military use. But it's only until the invention of the iPhone that things kind of penetrate into the mainstream and technology becomes cheap and accessible for everyone, making them things like Wikitude, wayfinding services, Pokemon Go as well, all that stuff possible. The next big breakthrough step is around 2016, when Epson releases the first glasses, or that was a little bit earlier. Google had something, but HoloLens then in 2016 suddenly, finally got it right at the price point that is affordable for normal consumers. When looking, however, then at how rapid reskilling and the authoring of content is supported along the way, and analyzing all those research papers written out there, we found with shock that most of them stay on relatively simple terms. They support remembering and understanding, if I may remind us of Bloom's taxonomy of cognitive processes, and hardly ever support any of the higher cognitive functions, like applying that knowledge, getting direct feedback, precision, helping to analyze, helping to evaluate, transfer, create stuff. So analyzing the functionality of the research work out there and the technical platforms rolled out, we concluded that there are hardly any tools that are fit for the purpose of really training us the way we need to. That's when we set out to build our own. And we have now developed for almost a decade across a range of projects, including TCBL, Wikit, most recently also ARET, which is still running, and OpenReal, which is Open University funded and still running. And this is what it looks like. We don a smart glasses headset, a head-mounted display. We can look down. We see this aura that always guides us with these floor lines to where the action is. We have interactive hands-free elements that help us navigate an experience. And we can very intuitively follow content provided by an expert instructor. So I'll switch off the sound now, not to talk over this instructor. This here is an example of how to set up an embroidery machine. We've just seen with a quick sketch how things need to be threaded in. And the next step is then how to load your bobbins with the right threads, spoolering them around, and subsequently we can see a few other highlights of the learning and training software for rapid reskilling that we are developing and rolling out. So here, a body backup of myself available in there, the more beautiful younger version of me that can walk and talk, and where we currently even experiment with an artificial intelligence mode, where we're trying to build something like a Siri, Cortana, Alexa that can not just answer Q&A, but can also show you how to do things and walk you to the right locations, pointing at things, illustrating what you need to do, and being like a three-dimensional added value version of those flat voice assistants that we already know so well. I said content is the issue, content production is the answer, and here is an example of what this looks like under the bonnet. So this is now, of course, a little bit more complicated to use. It's made for the expert. You see here one of 14 augmentations in total. 13 of them are supported here in the HoloLens. For creating content, this here is a visual language that we developed to support in particular setup procedures in industry, maintenance, assembly, and the like. Here a plug-in glyph for the UK market. A few others will follow now. This is very quickly dragged and dropped into the place where you want it. The interface for mobile looks slightly different, but also similar. So you would select augmentations, as we call them, flat on the screen, and then you would tap your finger on your device and move them where you want them, using the same spatial mapping and scanning mechanisms that we make use of here on smart glasses. I'll jump into a few more interesting points to highlight. Here we can see how a ghost is recorded. So mind it, the person has a headset on that tracks hand movement and the like. Explanations are provided. The expert uses a think aloud protocol like you would with an apprentice. And hitting stop and accept, I can get a direct preview of the content of what such a ghost looks like. And you see the illustration of where you need to plug it in. Highly complicated job, I know. And how to switch the machine on follows. Yeah, another highlight maybe that's, I think, next up, how to load some 3D content. We can search through repositories. An interface with Sketchwrap provides access to more than 4 million models. And similarly, when we provide drawing information, that's a recent highlight. We have created a 4-dimensional whiteboard, so it's 3D in time, using the famous Google Tilt Brush implementation. A teacher can very quickly just create highlight overlays on the actual machine, demonstrating some things. So we will see in a second how this threading that we've seen before, how the thread comes in, is painted using just the expert's fingers. Here, me quite clumsily doing it, as the recording of the whole procedure does interfere with the tracking of the fingers. That's not as smooth as it usually would be. Yeah, and now we can see a brief preview of what this looks like. Yeah, so here that was a dot marker, so the dots are slowly coming through in 3D space, guiding to the step. And finally, showing the character models. There is a range of 12 at the moment that can easily be placed in the environment, and they provide some standard animations as well as lip sync or the AI mode to guide people to where the action is, show them what they need to do. Yeah, so that's what the expert sees, using a set of instructional design mechanisms that we have extensively published about. Currently 14. We've seen quite a range of them in the video demonstrated. I'm not going to say much more about it. The underlying technology stack uses at the core a data exchange format that we standardized in the IEEE Standards Association. So the same standards association that is responsible for the Wi-Fi standard, for example, or for what it's worth, security critical things in atomic power plants and many other things. That's where the ARLEM standard is located. And since 2020, that's a fully fledging standard that describes activities and how they can be executed in the real world. We have also built for that a technology stack that integrates with a server. In our case, we use Moodle mostly, with a plugin to store these data packages that can be created using the built-in editor that you've seen in our cross-platform app available for iOS, Android, HoloLens 1, HoloLens 2 at the moment, and maybe further platforms like Oculus Quest coming in the future, which then can also be edited on the web in an expert mode. and can be rolled out to students using the regular scheduling of a virtual learning environment. I haven't shown you the learning record store, the real world analytics that we automatically collect to make performance analytics accessible to trainees, but also to management on the aggregate level that is acceptable with data protection procedures. But you can as much imagine that it's a very powerful tool. I mentioned already the underlying standard. Standards are strong and powerful, and a content model standard like that allows us to roll this out globally, touching into the long tail and tapping into content that otherwise would never have seen the light of day because it would have been too expensive to produce. I also cordially invite those techies amongst you to join us. We are a growing open source developer community. The system is in the community edition open source. There's an enterprise edition also available with full stack services through a spin-out company, WickedX, in Dublin, which can fit you with your own branded app, your own logo, and your own servers to keep in line with data protection obligations and privacy. In the open source community, however, we have an amazing team of 30 members by now, which very actively are committing code and testing and managing and issue tracking and leading now to version 1.8, which just recently has been released and is about to go to store. So if you check this as a recording, you might as well go visit your Apple App Store or your Google Play Store and see if it's already out. Yes, we have investigated this for a range of years, also academically, and we can proudly say it works. Rapid reskilling is possible with this approach. It has a lot of advantages. It can relax constraints you have on space and time. In particular, in pandemic times, hybrid and remote is important, and this is one of the technologies that you need for that, especially if you don't want to do that with time-eating one-to-one Zoom calls, but rather record once, reuse many. It can significantly increase engagement and the fun of it. It helps with tracking performance. It allows us to tap into this long tail of content, disrupting teaching as we know it, significantly reducing the production costs that previously prevented so much. And it gives us unprecedented autonomy where support previously was not available or practical, and reducing training downtime. Thank you very much.
What to say, Fridolin? Your first talk in 2016, I think, in TCBL, you came on as a magician. I don't know if you remember that, but this this
We're
stuff
doing the
is,
real thing now. We stopped cheating.
well, it
No.
still has an aura of magic
still
around
has
it.
an
Yes,
aura.
a lot of progress, but it's incredibly stimulating and so much more exciting than, you know, the demos that you see are all either trying to sell you something or trying to get you in some game of Dungeons and Dragons or something like this. And this, you can see your concern with real people and real skills, and it really makes it brings it home and makes it relevant. So thank you, incredibly. Now we're going to take a voyage to a totally different space and setting with Maria Antonietta Sbordone of the University Vanvitelli in Aversa, just outside of Naples. And you're going to take us more into the, how would you say, the territory on the ground. Over to Maria Antonietta. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Let me introduce myself. I'm Maria Antonietta Sbordone, a professor in industrial design based in Naples at the University of Campania, Luigi Vanvitelli. My disciplinary sectors are fashion, textile, service and product design. So I'm very grateful to the organization to join TCBL Days. I would like to share with you a mix of ingredients which I work on with my team at the university to improve sustainability in the heart of Campania rural areas. Campania is a part of Italy located in south of Italy. So next slide, please. I see this slide very, very little, so perhaps, okay, it's good now. So the discipline of design over time has set up itself with methodological models and specific design tools applied to the theme of local development, which starts from the definition of territorial capital. The recognition of resources is pivotal for the development of territories. The design approach establishes a dynamic vision, unlike the concept of static territorial capital, where tangible resources, if they are not moved and made vital by organizations, individuals, citizens, policymakers, are not available to everyone because they do not build interdependent relationship on their own. If over time has been push for autonomy from local resources, favoring increasingly accentuated mechanisms of independence and individualism, today the desired and required transition is towards the configuration and implementation of a territory of collaboration. Another big theme for the territories of collaboration is the intelligence of the territory. It deals with collectivism and sociality, capable of developing notions such as environmental and ecological capital. This implies a greater connotation of the territorial capital, representing a great shift from the most common sense and drag the other terms, the other themes, environmental justice, new forms of lateralization of governance. As one of these examples, our territories is the co-production processes that are mixing that are the mix between policy, private public policy, in response to the opportunities given to the phase, the risk due to the vulnerability and fragility of the territorial systems. Next one, please. In this scenario, the design methodologies and tools are applied. Some methods, such as co-design as a practice conducted involving citizens, stakeholders, policymakers, human-centered design, considering the concept of human needs being implicit or latent. Service design includes the intangible sides of the products, and design for social innovations faces the evolution of behavior due to the social change. And then open design describes the real evolution of design methods oriented to play a mediator role in an interdisciplinary space of interactions. According with the Italian authors Calderini and De Coster, local development is a collective process of territorial innovation rooted in relevant territories that organizes public and private actors in a network, and to achieve a common project culture whose purpose is economic, social, environmental, and based on a cultural well-being where there is a centrality in the human being. Next one, please. So the design methods are focused on the model of a territorial innovation to better run local development. In this way, territorial innovation models are based on a deep knowledge of local territorial capital, where individuals, groups, and stakeholders, policymakers are at the center of viability of exchange, improving local relationships. Firstly, based on collective learning processes rooted in a local context. As an example, in the presence of local action groups, that they referring to the LEADER methodology. The graph shows the dynamism of the interaction between the different spheres the interconnection gives rise to specific areas of activities and engagement, then commitment. Next one. In the next step in local interaction are driven by the communities that structure the collaboration between stakeholders at the basis of the configuration of a local network that has its parallel in a digital one, anticipating an extra territorial dimension. The design mediates the networking process, favoring the aggregative dynamics, a local network versus digital one, envisaging an economy founded on the development of local supply chains. Next one, please. Joining in the construction of components of a network means to assume as a model the local supply chains economy. Local supply chains economy is based on relationship chain of knowledge of cultural local productions, on interpersonal relationships at the service of the community to a substantial territorial reorganizations. Next one, please. According to the territorial reorganization, the model suggests a vision of the territory composed by overlapping layers. Each of those represents a production chain that amplify in value its value only if interconnected or integrated to each other. So that the tourism supply chain integrates with that of cultural heritage, which enriches the agro-food sectors with inventing new itineraries, from which training finds new topics, rediscovering tradition, narratives. The skills of craftsmanship are directly influenced by integration with others and vice versa. Next one, please. In this vision, the Text Lab, based at the University of Campania, is founded on design methods that acts as a mediator on a regional scene. Text Lab has a vision of the territory into interconnected layers requires to focalize on enhancement of local production, human in strict in close connection with increasing human skills and capabilities, developing an integrated supply chains, recovery of biodiversity, put attention into innovation in agriculture, developing bio-based new materials. Next one, please. So this scheme is a model, a provisional model for local development, oriented to co-creative territories and villages, because in the interior of Italy we have a problem of abandon of internal areas. This scheme, this model is very significant, because if we assume the territory as an interconnected system where tangible and intangible resources are at the disposal of everyone, the new co-creative methods could reorganize the local economies, founding on a substantial measure of activities that starts from recovering and valorizing leftovers from a primary production. necessary to promote new products and services for unrelated sectors. One of those examples will be valorized biomass from crops agriculture sector, becoming fibers for new textiles. Next one, please. The 3 pillars take up from the previous scheme. The first one shows the itinerary is based on tangible and intangible resources. In the second one, the itineraries are connected by the activities and action implemented by local decision makers. The third pillar tells us of the possible findings in the way of a new creative industriousness, because the results, the findings, come from the interconnected production supply chains, local interconnected production supply chains. Next one, please. The main resources are most forgotten or largely underutilized, come from indigenous plants. Fiber from textiles plants has existed since ancient times. It is long sturdy, hypoallergenic, non-toxic, being completely recyclable and rich in nutritional properties as well, and not only in nutritional properties. Next one, please. So the plants are at the origin of vegetable fibers, autochthonous and indigenous. Extract from everywhere represent the choice to create new materials identified as bio-based production. Next one, please. Next. Okay, thank you. The biomass resource from crops is traceable all along the value creation processes. As affirms the farm-to-fork sales strategies, probably it could turn or shift in farm-to-dress strategy. That means for a fair, healthy, environmentally friendly fashion and textile system. Next, please. On another hand, rediscovering recycling practices by the biomass represents a real resource rich in elements, as this case shows. We could extract vegetable pigments. Next one, please. To digest exchange processes will be feasible and scalable practice. Next one. Nowadays, Textile Lab, based at the University of Campania, do real vision of the farm-to-dress hypothesis. Making patches and products, we have an example of a shoes, from experiments combining yarns from vegetable fibers with others. See, we could see some patches made from hemp, nettle, bamboo, and so on, and many others. Next one, please. Textile Lab. In this slide, we could see technical sheets illustrating patches made with 3D knitting machine. Thanks to we could make combination threads, nether, seaweed, hemp, bamboo, and some others very interesting. And we showed that it's possible and suitable. The next step for our laboratory will be introduce bio-based threads made from biomass from local crops from our agriculture. Next one, please. thanks to the 3D knitting machine, we could, in our laboratory, we could mix hybrids craft techniques with digital design that represents the first approach from experimental research to applied research for the production supply chains. Next one, please. The conclusion highlights some contents. By recovering the tangible and intangible assets of territories, we can work towards a collaborative model for the circular economy. Co-creation processes are the engine, are the motor to improve social innovation. Local production circuits can reconnect supply chains by blending narratives, heritage, tradition. At the Textile Lab, we are experimenting with fibers, waves, and dyes to enhance local manufacturers and their skills and capabilities. Last one, but not last, impact pathways can link with rural policies for the diffusion of circular practices to achieve territorial, first of all, territorial identity. Thank you. This is the end. Thank you. We don't hear you.
Thank you, Maria Antonietta. That's really exciting. It's you know, you hear about circular economy and it all sounds very abstract and you sort of wonder what's going on, and you make it so real, so concrete, and also it's something that we can all do. And we're, you know, we've got it under our feet. We're sitting on it. And and that connects so well with your idea of collective creativity, of territorial creativity, and that territories can be creative, and that it's a beautiful adventure you're working on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll catch up in the discussion afterwards. And now for our last speakers from MyBean and the Redu lab in Iași in Romania, Elvys, Sandu, and Andreea Sofronea.
Hi, Jesse.
To you guys.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Okay,
Hi, everyone. I was not sure that my
Mike.
audio is okay. So let's start.
So, hi, everybody. We are Elvys and Andreea, and we are from Redu, a social enterprise owned by MyBean NGO from Iași, Romania. I am a fashion designer by school. I finished art school 10 years ago with a master's degree in slow fashion. And at the moment, I'm working for MyBean and Redu, and that's it. And my colleague Andreea.
Yes, I also finished the Arts University from Iași, but on the other side of not on the visual arts, but on theatrical and stage arts. And now I'm working at MyBean and also Redu, which me and Elvys would both co-manage, and we're both makers and designers there.
Okay, so today we will talk about Redu a little bit, just to get an insight, and afterwards about a collection, clothing collection that we, the students from the University of Arts in Iași did for an event called TCBL Night, which happened in Iași 2 or 3 years ago. 2 years ago. Next slide, please. So Redu, as at first it was a project. It was kickstarted with the Norway grants. Anka, our colleague, had a vision about a space where people could donate clothes, and we can collect also from factories, and out of that we could create new products. And eventually reduce the amount of waste that is created in the textile industry, textile and garment industry. Next slide, please. Well, following the principles of MyDine, because it's a social enterprise owned by MyDine, it's a mother organization regarding ecology, equity, and ethics. We now have, so we run on 3 dimensions. We have a workshop, we're also as a community catalyzers, and we also have a concept store, which is also a zero waste store. Next slide, please. As part of the workshop, we do repairing of old clothes, of course, and next slide, please. Sorry. And we also have our own production, which is out of new fabrics and mainly organic ones, and locally produced, preferably, and that's 99% of the cases. We also mix it with other fabrics that we collect from post-consumer and pre-consumer waste. We have our on products that we create only of textile waste, and we had some collection of clothings that we did in the first years. And for all of them, we can also do custom designs depending on the preferences of the clients that we have. Next slide, please. We're also, as I mentioned before, textile waste collectors. We currently collect from 3 factories from Iași. And we also collect from fabric stores and sometimes even from zippers factories and a lot of stuff. Next slide, please. And as community catalyzers, we do workshops, we do solidarity bazaars where we encourage swapping clothes, pardon. Upcycling workshops. We also care about the workers' right in the textile and garment industry, and sometimes we do flash mobs and art installations just to put lights on the hidden costs and underpaid workers. We do also repair and redesign workshops. We do screening of movies and a bunch of other stuff. Next slide, please.
So now we got to the main subject of our presentation today, the Entropy Collection, which, well, to make like an introduction, back in 2019, we got in contact with university lecturer Cornelia Brusturianu from design department of Arts University from Iași, who among other things was Elvys's teacher, professor, and back in the day, 10 years ago. And we proposed to her to develop with the students zero waste and upcycle collection for the TCBL night event. We at the time, we were a bit bigger team, and we collected a lot of fabrics and materials and accessories. So we had a very big garage with collected recovered textiles, zippers, and from that we selected with Mrs. Cornelia some fabrics they wanted, and we donated them for this theme. Since this is, I think, something that we both are very proud that we found professors there that were very receptive to our to our proposals, and since then they every year they have a semestrial work creative theme based on the principles of sustainability, zero waste design, and circularity. So Yeah, that's okay. So let's talk about entropy, which was coordinated by the university lecturers, as I said, Cornelia Brusturianu and Cristina Hărțescu. I would like to first mention the designers, Iuliana Strună, Oana Haras, Alexandra Ungureanu, Andreea Pascu, Andreea Timofte, Mădălina Oancea, Gorban Daniel, and Cristina Sasu, because they did a very, very good job. For a bit of a context, maybe some of you know, some of you don't, Romania, after 1989, when the communist regime fell, we went from a dictatorial framework dominated by the red color of socialism, which was also in the same time organized and predictable. So we went from that to the dissolution of in an unpredictable environment under the sign of randomness and unpredictability. Even today, the much desired order is not in sight. On the contrary, us Romanians see the transition as a factor of this destructing everything that went before. It's something that we renegade so much, and we interpret the democracy a bit different. It's also a concept that implies political participatory culture on the part of us as citizens, but in Romania, this democratic political culture was lacking, and also as citizens, when I'm thinking back at my parents back then in 1990, after the communist regime fell, they were not used to they were used to having everything like a house, workplace. Everything was settled by the state. And after that, after 1989, a lot of the people had to learn on how is life without having everything assured by the state, which came at a price, of course. There was no freedom of speech. There were not traveling was not allowed, but only in communist countries. It was very difficult, actually. It was not impossible, but it was very, very difficult. So in our presentation, to get a little more to the subject and to the collection, we also put some mood setters, I will call them, to create a little context, a visual context, to familiarize you with the communist vibe and what the students, the designers, used for this collection. So in this slide, we have a report card. Me and Elvys also had it. I don't think it had exactly that logo on it, because it's the communist logo, but it was our when in school, from first grade till high school, it was your grade book. Next slide, please. Also in red, you can see a party membership card. Everyone that wanted to be well seen by the communist regime had to have one. And in the pictures, there are some leftovers from the manufacturing halls, which they were production halls. Next slide, please. This is the primary school uniform. Next slide. And these, even if it's black and white, I will describe fast what it represents. It's children who were in kindergarten that were called Homeland Hawks. Their uniform was orange shirt with blue dress or trousers and a red tie. And after they entered the first grade in school, they were called pioneers. This was the upgrade, and their uniform changed to a white shirt, blue and white peplum dress, and trousers again, and a red tie. Next slide, please.
Disorder. Entropy is an energy phenomenon that is only tangentially related to the disruption of matter in a system. It is a natural tendency for things to lose order. Next slide, please. Left on its own, life will always become less structured. The universe naturally tends towards disorder, so we must expend energy to create stability, structure, and simplicity. Entropy can be a uniquely differentiator of natural versus cultural change. The economic process also involves a degradation of matter, which can no longer be used in future economic activities. In economics, but also more generally in the social domain, entropy can be the basis for the construction of a new model of the economy or social process. The Entropic Model, a new model of rationality, which in this context is understood as entropic change and hypotheses of economic behavior, are not formulated on the basis of the optimal, but on the basis of sustainability. Next slide, please. Here we have some photos from the place where the event took place. It's an old furniture factory, which for many years after the communist era was just a deposit of old stuff, because I don't know if you can imagine, when the communists fall, the places were left so untouched, and so you could find the workplaces were exactly how they left them, with the I don't know, pencils standing on desks or equipments, and everything was working normally. And when the communist era fell, they left it just like that. So the scenery inside of them was pretty amazing. That changed when the new generation came in, exactly, and there was a festival organized in that place to put a little bit of life into the old structures. So they painted the whole old buildings and inside them, and we had artists from all over Europe and especially Italy, which came and painted as well, and from Iași and from other cities of Romania. We can run a little bit through the slides, yeah, just to show some.
I would also like to mention that for a period of 3 years, I think, and when TCBL event took place, it was still happening. This big hall was a local independent theater, Teatru Fix, which they now lost the space, and it's a pity for the entire community of Iași, but I'm sure they will come back with new forces, and all their activity and on their initiative, a lot of things happened there. So as a thank you, I wanted to mention them.
Yeah. So taking all these aspects into consideration and moving on to the fashion collection, the young designers proposed developing a sustainable clothing collection based on the principles of zero waste and upcycling. And through this collection, the aim was to create an X-ray of the Romanian society in general, the one from Iași in particular, and show how that has evolved. They also wanted to draw attention to the way it should, or we would have evolved in almost 30 years of transition, but also to the fact that we can only develop together, being all connected and involved in the life of the city and of the country. Next slide, please. Next. So this collection can be seen as a means or tool that will facilitate the connection between individuals and the environment, and eventually in the universe which we live. So, Andreea?
Yes, also for the TCBL, I think on the same theme of reusing and always looking back at the traditional things and ways of working with the fabrics and threads, we made the totem out of textile waste based on traditional embroidery. And it looked, next slide, it looked something like this. This is how it began, the whole process and how it was followed. That is rose that's traditionally found in carpets that's woven or embroidered on cloths, table mats, and almost everything somebody has in a home. Next slide. And this is Jessie with the finished totem that we made. Still, also in the same idea of bringing back something that was, first of all, for me, fun, this embroidery process, but also I think it looks good and it can be used in so many ways as a technique. Thank you. I think this is next slide.
Yeah, this is it.
You could have warned me about that, but anyway, thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, that was fantastic. I do remember that that evening is something really memorable, and just the explosive amount of energy from all of this way of critically reviewing reality and memory as reality. No, really fantastic. Can we bring everybody up here and have a little bit of discussion? Fridolin had to leave us. Oh, he's still here. You said you had to leave us, but he'll be popping out soon. But anyway, I just wanted, as everybody was presenting, I was sort of thinking, the innocent spectator who may have tuned into this morning's session may have thought that they were going to see, you know, designs for big fashion firms and creativity, meaning, you know, that kind of stuff, because fashion is considered a creative industry because people design handbags and shirts and stuff like that, and that during the COVID and the lockdown, we all got this sensation that we were all locked up and taken away from reality, and that when it was over, we would be able to go back to reality. And coming out of the lockdown, we all realized that the reality we thought was there was actually quite artificial and quite detached from real reality in a certain sense, and that isn't creativity. Well, it is creativity, but we were seeing the beautiful creativity of the last talk, and those, and also I know that in the Creativewear Project some really interesting new designs were created from the textile collection, but we're looking at a totally different sense of what creativity is. If I could draw out some keywords from some of the talks, one thing is immersion, the opposite of being creative behind a computer screen, sitting in the design department in a skyscraper of some multinational fashion company, is immersion, getting immersed in reality, getting your hands into the dirt where the straw grows, and getting and uncovering the dusty archives of memories that people are trying to forget, and reinterpreting it. And the idea of entropy is perfect for that. We are in a moment of total disorder, which can be creative. There is energy. I think we're beginning to see it. coming because people are abandoning those design studios in the 86th floor of a skyscraper of a multinational firm and rebelling against all of that. And the kind of creativity, it's purpose driven. From Redo, you get a strong sense of purpose as a collective movement. It is linked to the territory. Maria Antonietta's analysis of the richness of what a territory has, which we forget when we're on the 86th floor of the skyscraper. And it's and also with Prato, you're linking it to memory, and there was a lot of memory around our virtual table this morning. Fridolin, would you? I was going to throw these reflections out to a round of comments. Fridolin, you go first if you have to go to your meeting.
Yes, apologies for that. True creativity comes from really tricky circumstances, right? So I think in the context of the pandemic, in the context of this big black swan event, we have now an opportunity to get some things right that we haven't yet gotten right in the past. And I think in particular in the textile and clothing business sector, this has to do with the availability of and access to collections as inspiration for new design. We need new ways of working, and we need to open up digitally significantly. We need to scan collections in a better way. We need to extend the capture to not just three-dimensional scan, artifact scanning, but we need to capture intangible cultural heritage as well. We need to capture performance. We need to capture skill, and make this then available remotely, as we now have the means to deliver things like that to a remote spot. You suddenly don't have to point webcams or GoPros around. You can just deliver this in 3 dimensions as if you were there. So I think that's an excellent opportunity to push on that front, the new ways of capturing digital cultural heritage and providing access that we previously couldn't do, and only takes only a pandemic to show us how badly off we suddenly are if we can't open the door, right?
Filippo and Paolo, what are your cuts on?
I start a few reflections. So it's very evident that in the boost of digital technologies that we have experienced in the last couple of years, we now are heading towards a rebalancing towards real life. So reality, whatever it is very healing. And I don't mean the augmented or the extended or the virtual or the meta reality, but I mean the dusty reality that Jesse just mentioned. So technologies are fine as long as they are tools to enhance what is the human factor, I think. I mean, creativity, we talk a lot about creativity. Creativity, according to me, is the very essence of being human. So it is the very heart of being human. It gives creativity is able to bring order to entropy. You know that in the universe, entropy is increasing. Where not for living beings, entropy would dominate the universe. But living beings are somehow able to create order in the increasingly entropical system of the universe. So creativity, according to me, is a way to bring order, meaningfulness, value, and intelligence in entropy. So the work that we are doing at the Textile Museum of Prato is on one side to exploit. And I say the word exploit not casually, because we need to exploit technologies. We don't need to, we shouldn't be the other way around, exploited by technologies. So we exploit the technologies to enhance what is human. And that's the right balance, in my view. whatever tries to do the other way around will get a bounce back, like we are seeing in the COVID. Just this morning, the news are that students are afraid of the distance learning. Why? Because the contact, the interaction, the breadth of the teacher, of the other students is far away. So whatever is digital needs to be integrated in what is real. And this is, I think, the key of the successful pilots that we are doing at the Textile Museum of Prato, where technologies are the tool and people are the actors. And this is, I think, the balanced way to approach new developments even after this COVID period.
Filippo, you have anything to add to that? I'll move on.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Just a few words. Thank you, Paolo. I totally agree with your vision of the question. I would like just to add a quick thought about the impact of technologies in fashion. I was talking about it with some Prato textile entrepreneurs, and they were telling me some days ago that they are completely scared about the fact that some companies, some leading fashion companies, are investing a lot of money in realizing design collection which are addressed to produce entirely virtual collections. That means virtual items that has to be used and they are strictly functional to let's say to be used in virtual reality, so to be worn by avatars, our avatars. So it's a very impressive. I think from the cultural point of view, it's a very interesting phenomenon. But I think that we still have to stick to the physical dimension of fashion, and Prato is doing a lot of work in terms of developing a real sustainable production. So tackling all the most important challenges that we are facing, this sector is facing. And from the point of view of our museum, we are very interested in following this process, let's say.
Maria Antonietta? You're done. Yeah.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
In my opinion, in my experience, I see a big lack, a missing role of politicians on the innovation scene. Yesterday, I talked with Jesse because I've had a meeting with the assessor. I don't know in English. We say at the productive activities. And when I spoke with him and his team. They are very, very fascinated from the proposal about regeneration, valorization of territories, productions from these territories, very, very problematic. But after this presentation, they haven't know any tools to conduct this kind of transformation or reorganization of territory. So on this time, perhaps I would like to launch a little reflection, if you agree. The lack between policymakers and social and cultural and creative innovation, because for us, for design field, creative is a method, is a process. It's not only a creative method in its creative creation. Creative is also in some policies, creative policies. Perhaps it will be possible.
Good question. Let's first get something from Elvys and Andreea, and then I'll pick up on that.
Andreea, do you want to start or?
Yeah, I was thinking in a way of creativity, and I keep thinking about this most of all in the past 2 years, 2 special years for everyone, I might say. And I'm having this thought that creativity is very linked with hands-on activities. I see it as an action and reaction, because I'll go with examples. Maybe I could be clearer that it's like sewing. Sewing, it's a process. You do it with your hands, from thread to fabric to garment, or other creative, like writing. Writing was done on paper. Well, now we're doing it on the computer, and so on. All the creativity, I think we're missing, and this pandemic gave us a bit of what we're missing, a glimpse of what we're missing. I think we moved a bit fast in the last century, and it was a bit difficult for us as human beings to adapt to all the speed of technology. And now, as I see, we need to tame it down a bit with the technology, start using again our hands a lot, not on laptops and phones, but going a bit back to the roots, and experimenting with the hands. That's how I think this pandemic changed to some of us, because we all started making bread for some reason. So the need was to use our hands more than use our telephones or laptops, because nobody knew 2 years ago what is going to happen or how bad it is. So I don't know how much logic these words have now, but I say it like that we need to learn how to slow down a bit, but not slow down the technology, but us, how we report to it. I think everything, it's amazing for what we achieved. Even the presentations today taught us a lot, and how far we've got. But always, I see it as a keep step grounded, something very real and something very advanced.
I would like to follow your thoughts and go a little bit further with the fact that we tend to oversee the past when we are looking in the future. We see so many emerging technologies, but we have a lot to learn still from the past. And for example, with the textiles, I really like the concept of farm to dress. It's amazing. I'm also a big fan of farm to fork. And from how I see it, because we're also involved in some projects which are very new, and they do new technologies, traceability, and new fabrics. And I think we're missing a little bit the old the fabrics, and how we can transform them to be more on our likes, and to get more stuff out of them. because I see very little preoccupation on hemp as a regional textile, and it has so much potential that we're not exploring, but we're looking sometimes at other stuff that, yeah, we can use the creativity of developing new stuff on perfectioning the old ones somehow. That's how I see it. And methodologies as well, not just fabrics.
Yeah. Can I go back to what Maria Antonietta was saying a little bit? Because I think that and this links also with Paolo's question about technology. I think right now a lot of people are really afraid, particularly policymakers who are in a position of policymakers or politicians in general, it should be giving us a vision, a desirable vision that we want to vote for, that we want to give them. And they should be knowing how to spend money or collective resources for the good, the collective good. But I think most of them are terrorized because there's an awareness that the current trends are unsustainable and are not going to work. You just look at what happened at COP26. They all know it, but they don't have the courage because they don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. And that is where and you get the impression that people are trying to use technology as an alibi to sort of to pretend that we can keep doing things. We can all go out and buy electric cars and we won't have to change, and we can still drive back and forth to work as though nothing happened, as though and the pandemic sort of helped us to realize that this lifestyle that we were clinging on to so desperately wasn't all that great anyway. But what I got from all of these presentations is that is that is that the future, or a really sustainable future, not just one that's 1.8 degrees future, uh, can be great, can be really cool, can be wonderful, can give us a sense that of recovering something that we feel like we've lost, that it could be much better. But that has yet to mature into a political vision, something it's difficult to communicate and explain. It's as though you all seem to be able to live it and be it, but it's hard to tell other people, or it doesn't translate well into terms that people can understand. And it's as though we need to reassure people a little bit, and that I think is where the memory question comes in. But that's where the astounding relevance of the case of Ceausescu, and I mean, you guys did live through a real total regime collapse, and it's what all of the world is looking at right now. I mean, people are wondering, is there going to be a regime collapse? Filippo, I think you're Prato industrialists, the last time I was there, they were worried more about the total collapse of the fast fashion system, and that all of these clients who were milking them at lower and lower profits are going to disappear from one day to the next. And they're talking about virtual fashion as just imagining some world where things will carry on business as usual, just with a couple of robots here and there. But I think I see connections between four talks that on the surface are totally different from each other, but there seems to be a connecting thread of a desirable and achievable vision. It's just alternative. It's just different. So I would ask you, how can you? I don't think you can really convince the policymaker. We need to sort of tell them it's going to be all right somehow, that or by the policymaker I mean people in general. How can we do a better job at communicating that on the other side of the collapsing tower, it can actually be a better and a nicer world and not just more sustainable. And so again, I'd throw that question out to all of you in whatever order you feel. Maria Antonietta, you first. You got us into this mess. with your assessore, with your minister for productive activities. Yeah, I agree. They're locked into. I mean, for them, regional development in the south of Italy is made of stainless steel, right?
Yes, but we have the same. Perhaps we have the same problems of Tuscany region, because we have a big fashion manufacturer districts. So the problem is quite similar. The non-reaction of policymakers at this situation is very, I think it's very preoccupant. It's very worried for us, for all of us that are in the education, in the research, and all the others fields all around the sector of fashion and textile. It's not only a question of policymaker. So it's also our question too.
Paolo and Filippo,
Our problem too.
What's your take on that?
I will start because yesterday just yesterday afternoon at 5 p.m. we had a meeting between startups and textile and clothing enterprises here in Prato, and that was facilitated by the policymakers, by the municipality. And it's a very rare event that a policymaker, even a local one like the municipality, is organizing something like this. And the wonder is whether an administrator role, its role should be like that, to facilitate meeting of different actors like startups and enterprises, which never happened in Prato before. In my memory, I'm working in Prato since almost 20 years, 15 years at least. So I think policymakers are their hands are tied in a way, because on one hand, they are voted, and so the people decide who is going to govern them. On the other hand, they are afraid to propose something that goes beyond their mandate. So it's not up to them only to innovate. But in very rare cases, policymakers, let's say, suggest something that is beyond their people's vision, and then they reap the fruits. If the time is not ripe, then they will probably be substituted. But there is hope also, I think, because when I see that in China, the time for children to be on the internet is restricted by law, which was never done in the Western countries. So even in China, which is the most, quote, materialistic country in the world, there is an awareness that something more than that should be there. And this is also what we were saying before, real life and digital life in a balance. And this is the challenge today, because otherwise we launch on digital development, on productivity, on industrial development, and all the rest comes second first. So that's my vision.
I don't think we can. I'm not sure we can say digital versus human directly. I mean, there's lots of digital. I mean, look at it's pity Frido had to leave us, because I mean he's looking at a very relational type of digital world. I think that it's more a question of what's behind it. What are the forces behind it? In the early days of the internet, and I was sort of there in the 80s and the 90s doing this stuff, it all seemed wonderfully liberating, democratic. You could communicate and socialize like you never could before. And the question is, what are the forces that ultimately turned us from active citizens to passive citizens? And again, going back to your presentations, what I saw was active citizenship at all levels, and also, how would you say, textiles and clothing, fashion, as a question of citizenship, as a question of engagement, of purpose, of working the ground, and relating, no? And again, to go back to the policymakers, I think they do have their hands tied, but in part because they've been cut out of the equation. So policymakers need an active citizenship if they want to return to return to becoming to being able to provide a vision. So I think everybody is a little bit at a loss, and we need these kind of answers, proposals, suggestions, and even the provocations. Well, let's have a final round of comments and then see if we can wrap up on that.
Can I?
Yes, Elvys, I saw you thinking.
Yeah. I wanted to say that it's going to be a difficult process to change the mindsets of the policymakers. And it's only because we've been so I don't know how to say, but we were attacked from all the parts of consumerisms, and we've started getting gratitude, the instant gratitude, and it will be very difficult to come to substitute that in the with what we do ourselves. But I think we need to create some experiences that will engage people, even if it's virtually, and somehow they need to engage them and to connect them to the natural world, and to let them not forget that they're part of an ecosystem and a planet which takes care of them. And it's not a bad thing to go to put your Oculus for 1 hour and to see the universe or to learn new stuff. That's a really cool thing. But we, at the same time, never these actions always have to have a small reminder in the back that you are on planet Earth somehow. That's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvys. I think that's Filippo. Go ahead. You got to unmute your mic for us to hear you.
Oh,
there you go.
Okay, just a few remarks about the role of let's say institutional stakeholders or politicians to tackle this situation. I think that they are most of them, and even governments, are trying to change as less as possible our way of life. I mean, the problem is very big. If we would like to change and to start changing, really, we should change a lot of our system of production, of our way of life. But this will impact a lot on probably on quality of our lives, and I don't think they are able to keep this commitment because they will lose a lot of consensus. So they are just doing not very much. I don't think I'm not very positive. I think that it will not be enough what governments and local institutions are planning to do in the forthcoming years. And it's the same that is happening in the production. I mean, from one side, we have a lot of companies, for instance, the companies producing yarns and textiles, who are working a lot in order to strengthen the sustainability of materials, of processes, and so on. From the other side, we know that the fashion companies are still today, with the problems that we are tackling, they are asking for cheap, very cheap products. They really don't care. Very few of them care about sustainability. They use sustainability mostly for greenwashing initiatives, just to say that they have a couple of articles which are sustainable. They push a lot in the promotion of this, just to wash their reputation. But when they go to the companies and they ask for textiles, very few of them are asking for really truly sustainable products, because they are more expensive, because probably they have technical problems, because I'm sure it's very difficult to find, for instance, in the contemporary collections of most of the companies, textiles made exclusively by natural fibers. You always find, some synthetic fibers within the, let's say, in the mix of the materials that are used, because of course these kind of materials can provide more performances from several point of view. So I think we are most of this, the production and also the institutions are trying to do something, but in the surface. So I think that almost nothing is very changing by now. So I know I'm very negative, but this is my what I see from my side.
But Filippo, that's the point of TCBL. Our idea is that if we can create an alliance between the smaller producers who are all getting exploited in this big machinery, and an alliance between people like the people we've just been talking to, we create a movement, because what we need is a movement. I mean, Greta Thunberg is doing what she's doing and showing that the only way to really bring about any real change is that if the small fry get together and are able to connect and to create an alternative system. It's a long path to make an alternative system that is really going to guarantee the survival of one of your textile companies in Prato, the same way that a big order from one of the big brands will do. But that is the path that we are tracing, and some people are choosing to come with us. And I think that what we've seen this morning shows that it's possible, it's doable, and it's absolutely desirable. So I think that at a certain point we're going to see that. I'm an optimist, because I think that at a certain point we're going to see the tipping point. We're going to see like what happened in food a little bit, and still yet has to happen. I think we're going to see the marketing people realize that people are going to prefer something different. I think we're going to see the small to medium-sized companies make a shift in that direction. They're going to see that that's what people prefer. I think we're going to see people begin to prefer. We're already seeing in the United States, people are just quitting their jobs. They're not going back to work. They are not going to continue to participate in that exploitative system. And at a certain point, there's going to be a tipping point, and that's when we'll get the policymakers with us. That's when we'll get the industry, the bigger industry, wake up and decide to come with us. So we're working to get there, and hopefully we'll get there. We'll see you this afternoon. Thanks to all of our speakers. And that's it for this morning's session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.